Kobe Bryant and 8 other people died in a helicopter crash on Sunday at around 9:45 in the morning California time. And since that time, there have been humongous outpourings of people who are saddened because they loved him and what he stood for as a basketball player, and what he stood for as a father, and what he stood for as a role model for future basketball players. There have also been people who were quick to remind everyone of the allegations he faced for sexual misconduct in Colorado, which was removed from court when the, what would you say, alleged victim withdrew the case when she wouldn't testify, and then they settled out of court on in a civil case. So that's what happened there. Now, from where I come from, I am not a fan of him. I'm also not a fan of basketball, but in no way did I ever wish him harm, and I was just as stunned as the rest of the world when I found out. And yes, I, being old enough, completely remembered the incident in 2003 when he had those allegations. But I didn't make a video about it because the idea of trashing somebody right after they die is born of the left attacking people on the right in the Trump era, because that's when it started. You won't find examples ever of the right trashing people on the left when they die because of their politics. So here comes this situation, and the left has gotten so used to attacking people that they disagree with that they're even attacking their own now, because Kobe Bryant isn't famous lefty, but he's no famous righty. And if you think Kobe Bryant living in Los Angeles, and let's be honest, his flesh tone led him to be a Republican or a conservative, it would have been known. It absolutely would have been known. So, yeah, they just got so used to eating up the right that they just can't let it go now. Now that's just going to eat up everybody. So here's NBC. Washington Post already did their story and already suspended that woman for bringing it up and hammering it over and over and over. And I have mixed feelings on that because, like, okay, she wasn't saying anything that wasn't true. It's just the timing was like, the dead deserve at least 3 days of, yeah. And for those of you that know my channel, you're like, you have no right to say that. You're right. I'm not going to deny it. Okay. Now, but it doesn't mean they don't deserve it. It just means I didn't respect it one time because of the warning that you shouldn't go hiking alone. And in this case, if you want to do a warning, the warning would be impatience kills, because if they would have waited an hour, the fog would have burned off and they'd have been fine. But that's crying over spilled milk and spilled helicopters. So here's NBC saying, oh, Kobe Bryant died, an inspiration to many. Ooh, but not all. No. He's not even buried in the ground yet. He's not. And we're gonna throw aspersions on him. Ignoring Bryant's sexual assault allegation doesn't just do a disservice to victims. It arguably eradicates the pivotal event of the star's life and career. Or it could just be that it could have waited a few days. Could be. You just need to wait a few days, and your few days ain't up. All right. So, because it was one of the first things to come to my mind, and honestly it was to anybody that lived through that era, one of the things I've thought of since then, and this is the difference between YouTube and Twitter. We're allowed to think. Twitter has to, oh no, I got to do my hot take right now. No, we're actually allowed to ponder this stuff. The thing I was thinking about is like, okay, that was 2003, this is 2020, just barely, it's January, but nonetheless. And what that tells me is he's had 16 years where he's led an exemplary life towards women. He's married to a woman. I know that's unusual in California, I've heard, but he's married to a woman, and he had, when he was alive, 4 daughters when she was alive, because one of the daughters was in the crash. Okay, so he's surrounded by women, and once you start producing children, it's hard to imagine that it didn't go through his head if he was guilty. And let's not pretend that there aren't women who don't exploit rock and rollers, touring bands, and sports people, to make a buck. I'm not making a conclusion either way. I'm pointing out that both things could be true. Both things can happen, because both things do happen. Sports stars are aggressive sexually on occasion, and fans lie on occasion. Okay, so all that being said, let's, for the sake of this argument, say he was guilty of it. Well, how do you repent more than raising 4 daughters in the most pristine fashion that you can, and he's known as a very caring and loving father, and be married to the same woman all that time? Because let's face it, how many people even stay married to the same person anymore? So, I'm sorry, he's winning that argument. And Will Leach, good name, and the Washington Post woman, look, we're not saying that that's not valid. Heck, it was the first thing in my head. What we're saying is, like, let it breathe, let it rest. And that's all we're saying. And, I thought about talking about the crash because I've had some flight training. Not much. I'm not a pilot by any stretch of the imagination. But everything they taught us in flight training about once you go in the clouds, you get vertigo. And once you go in the clouds and you get vertigo, you don't know which way is up and which way is down, which is fantastic in the sense that that's how motion rides work, like Star Tours and things like that. They completely rely on the senses being tricked by what you see. Well, when you can see nothing but whiteness outside of the sky, whiteness, is that racist? Then you get all disoriented. Oriented? Is that racist? Okay, so here's the situation that most of the pilots are arguing probably happened, which is he went in the clouds, couldn't tell which way he was going. He knew he had to go up because he would have smashed into the mountains of Calabasas. That was the last thing that Burbank said to him, which we don't even know if he heard because it was the last thing and there was no report back to that. And he made a hard left turn and he smashed into the ground at approximately 184 miles an hour. And reading the news yesterday when they said it took over 24 hours to collect 3 bodies. We know there's 9. And if it took over 24 hours to collect 3, I don't want to get into details, but you can use your imagination. That's a gruesome situation. And again, in the pilot training that I had, that's what they told us, that if you get into the weather, which is another way of saying in a cloud, you get into the weather and you get disoriented and you get vertigo, and if you don't rely on your instruments, immediately, boom, squat, then they got to scoop you up. That's the way they put it to us in school. And it has happened to so many pilots. It happened to the Kennedy heir. I don't want to say boy because he was definitely a full-grown man. It happened to him. As far as I know, and I could be wrong about this, you can put it in the comments below, it's what happened to the helicopter that killed Stevie Ray Vaughan, the guitar player. It's what happened to the helicopter that killed Frank Wells from the Disney Corporation. The list of people that have died because they got into a cloud and got disoriented is not a short list, and it also holds lots of celebrities. So that's what I got to say about that. Attacking Kobe about a situation that did happen and was real, and by real I mean he did have to go to court for it and all that. Whether or not they did it or not, we'll never know. The woman in Colorado knows, Kobe knows, but Kobe's not with us anymore. It just would have been helpful if they would have let it rest for a few days, but they've just gotten so angry so often during the Trump years that they just don't know how to back off. And as the old saying goes, every revolution eats their own. That was stated after the American Revolution because Americans didn't. But we are the exception to the rule in that regard, because here it is. Cancel culture and just people just don't know how to be nice on the left. Oh, so you're saying the righties are all nice? Hang out with a righty, hang out with a lefty. You tell me which one's nicer to you in the long run. And I'll leave it at that. Not that I'm biased or anything. I'm sure there's bad righties. I'm sure there's bad lefties. And one of the things I find interesting about that last argument is I have never, ever heard, which doesn't mean it didn't happen. I just never heard it. I've never heard a lefty say, well, because sometimes on the left and on the right. No. It's only righties that always add themselves into the equation. And I find that evidence towards saying that the right is nicer than the left, because the right self-reflects. Often. Very often. Sometimes to their detriment. If you like the content of this video, which is, God, I hope not, it's horrible and sad, but if you like the quality of this video and you want to see more of it, not that I'm going to do more videos of people dying, I hope. Even though I did do the one that got me in trouble. Actually, I've done two that have got me in trouble. Hopefully this one won't. Anyways, if you want more, subscribe, share, come on back.